Morning light spread over the quiet ranch like a calm blanket. Birds sat on the fence and sang as the wind moved across the grass. The new homeowner, Daniel, woke up early as usual. He liked the peaceful start of the day. After a simple breakfast, he put on his work boots, grabbed his hat, and stepped outside to check the property. He liked to walk the fence line, look at the water level of the pond, and make sure everything was safe and clean. He breathed in the fresh air and felt grateful for this land. It was quiet, open, and clear, just how he liked it. Daniel had moved here a few months ago. He chose this ranch because it gave him space to work on a special project, a large, carefully designed pond with a natural shore and a stable embankment. He had approval papers from the county, the state environmental office, and a partner program linked to the military for water safety and training. The plan was simple. The pond would be used sometimes for practice sessions, like rescue drills and safe water entry training. Most days, it simply sat calm and still, a home for ducks and dragonflies. The water reflected the sky and the reeds. At the edge added a soft green border. He kept everything well organized. The dock was short and sturdy. The signs were clean and easy to read. Restricted use, authorized personnel only on training days, and no swimming. He liked rules, not because he wanted to control people, but because clear rules kept people safe. He stored his permit folder in a weatherproof box inside his office, and he kept digital copies on his computer. He knew neighbors might ask questions, and he wanted to answer simply and clearly. The neighborhood had an HOA, even though his land felt more like open country than a regular street. The HOA controlled the main road, the entry gate, and some shared areas. They did not manage his water project, but they still cared about how things looked from the road. Daniel tried to be respectful. He kept the front fence neat. He trimmed the hedges. He waved to people who passed by. Some neighbors waved back. Some only looked and kept driving. There was one person who noticed everything. Her name was Karen. She served on the HOA board and took her role very seriously. She liked to read the rule book and send reminders about mailbox color, garbage day, and lawn height. She wasn't unkind, but she could be sharp. She thought order made life better. She believed every property should look the same, with no surprises. She especially did not like big changes, and to her, Daniel's pond looked like a big change. She first saw the water when she drove by to visit a friend. Between the trees, she noticed the sparkling surface and a small dock. From the road, the dock might have looked like something for swimming. She slowed down, stared, and frowned. She pulled over and took out her phone. She zoomed in. "That looks like a pool," she whispered to herself. But they didn't submit any pool form. In her mind, she made a list. If it was a pool, it would need a fence of a certain height. It would need a safety gate. It would need HOA approval. She knew the page number for the pool rule. She could speak those words in her sleep. Daniel, unaware of her concern, continued his day. He checked the pump system that kept the water moving so it stayed clean. He tested the small solar-powered aerator. He wrote numbers in a notebook: water level, clarity, flow rate. He was proud of how the pond looked. It felt natural, almost like it had always been there. He watched a pair of ducks land and glide across the surface. He smiled, thinking how even wildlife approved of his design. Later, he drove into town to buy supplies. He needed biodegradable markers for the shoreline and a new hose fitting. On the way back, he waved at a neighbor who was walking a dog. The neighbor waved back with a friendly smile. Daniel felt good about that small moment. He liked simple kindness and slow trust. It takes time to build, he told himself, and he was patient. Meanwhile, Karen kept thinking about the pool. She opened the HOA email account on her laptop and searched for any request from Daniel. She did not see one. She checked the last 3 months of forms. Nothing. She read the rules again. Pools needed approval. Safety signs had to follow a specific style. She told herself, I have to protect the community. She believed that if rules were not followed, problems would grow. In her mind, she was a helper, making sure everything stayed safe. She decided to drive back and take a better look. In the afternoon sun, the pond was even shinier. She noticed the dock again and a small sign. She could not read it clearly from the road, and she did not want to go inside the gate without permission. She lifted her phone and took a few photos. She caught the angle where the dock lined up with the water and looked to her eyes like steps into a pool. She zoomed in on the sign and tried to capture a word here and there. The picture came out a little blurry. She sighed. Still, she felt certain. To her, it was obvious. A big body of water plus a dock meant a pool in daily use. At that exact time, Daniel was in his office, placing the new hose fitting on a shelf. He updated a spreadsheet that tracked the pond's maintenance tasks. He remembered the first day the county inspector came by. The inspector had said, "Everything looks good. You've done your homework." That sentence stayed with him on hard days. It made him feel steady. He kept copies of the inspector's email and a letter from the Military Partner Program in a folder labeled Pond Approvals. A light knock came at his front gate. It wasn't a firm knock, more like a quick tap, and then silence. Daniel walked out to the porch, but when he looked, no one was there. He saw a car down the road, pulling away slowly. It looked familiar. He thought it might be the same car he'd noticed earlier in the day. He shrugged and went back inside. He had no reason to worry. The signs were correct. The permits were correct. He had nothing to hide. Karen sat in her car, staring at the photos. She opened the HOA group chat on her phone. "Anyone know about a new pool on the ranch property? Near the gate?" she typed. A few neighbors replied with question marks. One person said, "I've seen water there for weeks. Looks like a pond." Another said, "I thought it was for wildlife." Karen typed back, "There is a dock, and I don't see an approved form. This could be a serious safety issue." Her words were short and certain. She liked clarity. She waited a few minutes for more replies. None came. She switched to email and wrote a message to the HOA president. "Possible unapproved pool. I recommend immediate action, safety risk. Please advise." Then, impatient, she decided to take matters into her own hands. She called the HOA hotline, left a detailed message, and asked for a callback. She felt the situation needed speed and firmness. In her mind, speed prevented problems. Daniel went out to the pond for an afternoon check. The sun was lower now, and the air felt a little cooler. He watched the water ripple lightly. He looked at the sign again, making sure it was straight and clear. "No swimming," it said. "Authorized personnel only on training days." He felt the ground near the embankment with his boot to confirm it was solid. Everything was in order. He picked up a small piece of trash that had blown in from the road, a wrapper someone must have dropped, and placed it in his pocket. Small care, he told himself, adds up to big care. Back in her car, Karen felt a pull to do something more. She told herself it was her duty to keep the neighborhood safe and orderly. She opened her phone and typed the number for the non-emergency police line. Her hand paused for a second. She wasn't angry. She was focused. She believed she had enough information. She believed calling would bring clarity. She pressed the call button. "Non-emergency line. How can we help?" The dispatcher said, "Hello?" Karen began, keeping her voice calm. "I'm calling from a homeowners association near the county line. I believe there is an unapproved pool on a ranch property. I'm concerned about safety. There is a dock and open access. We have rules that require fences and permits. The A." Dispatcher asked for details. The address, what she saw, whether anyone was in danger. Karen answered step by step. "I don't see people swimming now, but the structure looks like a pool to me. There is water, a dock, and no clear safety barrier from the road view. Thank you, the dispatcher said. We'll note the concern and see what needs to be checked. When the call ended, Karen felt a sense of relief. She believed she had done her part. She sent the photos to the HOA email and added a subject line. Unapproved pool. Immediate review requested. She imagined a meeting where she would present the facts and the rules. In her mind, she was helping the community avoid a problem before it started. At the ranch, Daniel lined up tools in the small shed: rake, shovel, water test kit. He heard a car pass, then quiet again. He looked up at the sky and saw a faint trace of pink as the day began to lean toward evening. He thought about calling his sister to tell her the ducks had returned. He liked sharing small joys. He walked back to the house, poured himself a glass of water, and sat by the window with a view of the pond. It looked peaceful and right. He did not know about the photos. He did not know about the messages. He did not know about the call. He only knew the reasons for the pond and the careful work he had put into it. He knew the rules he had followed. He knew the mission behind it all: safety, training, and care for the land. On the road outside the neighborhood, a dispatcher looked at a screen and noted the report. It was a calm day and there was time to review. The note was simple: possible. Code issue. Water feature reported as unapproved pool. The system. The next day began quiet and bright with a clear blue sky over the ranch. Daniel had just finished checking the embankment near the pond when he heard the soft crunch of tires on gravel. He looked up from the water and saw 2 patrol cars turn in from the main road. Their lights were off. The cars moved slowly, careful on the long drive. The moment felt calm but unusual, like a surprise visitor showing up at a careful hour. 2 officers stepped out. One was a steady-looking woman in her 40s with a relaxed posture and clear eyes. The other was a younger man who seemed thoughtful and patient. They glanced around the property, then walked toward Daniel along the path lined with tall grass. "Good afternoon," the woman said. "I'm Officer Reyes, and this is Officer Miller." Her voice was firm but friendly. "We received a call about a possible code concern related to a water feature." Daniel wiped his hands on a clean cloth and nodded. "Good afternoon, officers. I'm Daniel. You're welcome to stand in the shade by the porch. It's cooler there." They moved to the porch, where a soft breeze carried the sound of reeds rustling. A pair of ducks drifted across the pond, leaving small ripples on the surface. The scene was peaceful, and the officers noticed it. Officer Miller glanced at his notepad. "We were told there might be an unapproved pool on the property," he said gently. "We're here on a non-emergency check. No one is in trouble. We just need to understand the situation." Daniel's face stayed calm. "It's not a pool," he said. "It's a pond. It has permits. You're free to look at it." "Thank you," Officer Reyes said. "Let's take a brief look from a safe distance." They walked along the path Daniel had built, a simple walkway with small markers, and a clear sign near the dock. The sign read, "No swimming, restricted use, authorized personnel only on training days." The dock itself was short and sturdy with a rope rail and no steps leading in. The shoreline was natural, with reeds and stones placed to prevent erosion. The water moved slowly from a small aerator that hummed with a quiet rhythm. Officer Reyes studied the sign and the dock. "No ladder, no steps." "Oh, not the usual look of a residential pool," she said softly, almost to herself. She ran her fingers over the rope rail and looked at the embankment slope. "How is access controlled on training days?" Daniel pointed toward the gate by the drive. "On training days, the gate is staffed. I place additional signs and cones by the path, and the dock is used only by authorized people following a checklist. Most days there's no activity. It's just a pond." Officer Miller crouched near the edge, careful not to disturb the bank. He glanced at the small solar unit that powered the aerator. "And this?" he asked. "Aeration," Daniel said. "It keeps the water healthy. There's no chemical system like you'd see with a swimming pool, no chlorination, no pool pump. It's a natural water body managed for safety and quality." The officers took notes. A breeze moved across the grass. Then, from the road, a familiar car appeared and rolled to a stop near the gate. It was Karen. She stepped out with a neat clipboard and a folder. Her expression was focused, like someone trying to fix a problem before it grew. "Officers," she said, walking up the path. "Thank you for coming. I'm on the HOA board. We have strict rules for pools. This property does not have an approved pool form on file." Officer Reyes gave a polite nod. "Thank you for the information. We're taking a look." Karen gestured toward the dock. "You see that?" she said. "There is a dock. Children walk by here. The HOA requires fences and locks for pools." Daniel kept his calm tone. "Hello, Karen," he said. "It's a pond. The permits are from the county and state, and use is restricted on training days. I have documentation." Karen held up her clipboard. "I have the rule book," she said, tapping it gently. "And from the road, this looks like a pool to me." A couple of neighbors, curious, had stopped on their afternoon walks. One person with a small dog stood by the fence line, watching quietly. Another neighbor on a bicycle leaned on the handlebars, listening without speaking. The scene felt like a small meeting under the open sky, everyone gathered by accident. Officer Miller kept the tone clear and steady. "We're just confirming the nature of the water feature," he said. "This is not a criminal matter. We're verifying compliance and safety." "Understood," Daniel replied. "I have a folder with all my permits in the office. Would you like to see them?" "Yes," Officer Reyes said. "Please. We'll review documentation on the porch table." Karen cleared her throat. "May I see the paperwork as well?" she asked. Officer Reyes answered kindly. "We'll review with the property owner first. If HOA documents are relevant, we'll note them. Feel free to share any written HOA policies with us by email." Karen nodded, though her shoulders were a little stiff. She stood to the side, watching the pond. The ducks glided past again, unbothered by any of it. As Daniel started toward the house, Officer Miller asked a few more practical questions. "How is access controlled when no one is here? Is there a barrier or natural limit that deters unsupervised use?" Daniel pointed to the subtle berm and the way the path curved. "The shore is built to discourage casual entry. There are no swimming signs at visible points. The dock's rope rail is not an invitation, it's a safety feature, and I keep the gate closed except for deliveries or scheduled visits." Officer Reyes walked the embankment slowly, testing the ground with her boot. It felt firm and well-packed, not the loose slip of a backyard pool deck. She looked at the reeds and stones. "Good erosion control," she said thoughtfully. "Did you consult a plan?" "Yes," Daniel said. "I followed an approved plan." His words were simple and matter-of-fact. He did not rush. He did not argue. He only described what was true. They returned to the porch. Daniel went inside to retrieve the folder. The screen door made a soft sound as it closed behind him. Inside, he moved with unhurried steps. He took the binder labeled Pond Approvals from the shelf and checked the tabs: Site Plan, County Permit, Environmental Sign-Off, Safety Checklist, Contact Letters. He also grabbed a small drive with digital copies, just in case. Back. Outside, Karen spoke to the neighbors near the fence. "We have to think about safety," she said. "Imagine if a child wandered in." The neighbor with the dog was gentle in reply. "The sign says no swimming," he said, "and the gate's usually shut. Maybe it's different from what we think." Karen held her clipboard closer. "Rules exist for everyone," she said, soft but firm. We only want order and safety. Officer Miller looked toward the pond again, studying the dock. He noticed there were no flotation toys, no ladder, no bright colors, nothing that suggested leisure use. The dock looked more like a platform for work rather than play. He wrote another short note on his pad. Daniel returned to the porch with the binder. "Here we are," he said, placing it on the table. The binder was neat, with labeled tabs and clear plastic sleeves. He set a glass pitcher of water next to it and a few clean cups, offering the officers a drink. "Thank you," Officer Reyes said, accepting a small cup. "Before we review, one more question. On days when people are here for authorized activities, how do you communicate with neighbors?" "I post a notice on the community board by the gate," Daniel said. "The dates are limited and scheduled in advance. I also send a brief email to the HOA inbox to avoid surprises. Most days, there's no activity at all." Karen looked up. "I did see an email about restricted use days," she admitted, flipping through her notes. "But I assumed it was a mistake because we have no pool approval form." She pressed her lips together, thoughtful for a moment. Officer Reyes gave a small nod. "Thank you for sharing," she said. "We'll focus on the permits and the classification of this water body." A bike chain clicked softly as the cyclist pushed off and rolled away. The neighbor with the dog waved once, then headed back down the path. The air felt warmer now, but the porch shade held a comfortable cool. In the distance, a bird called from a tree near the fence. Everything in the scene moved at an easy pace, even while people's minds worked hard to understand one another. Officer Miller turned the binder so he and Officer Reyes could see it. The first tab was labeled Site Plan. Beneath the plastic sleeve was a scaled diagram of the pond, the dock, the berm, and the path. The notes were clear and precise, with stamps at the corner from the county office. "Before we dive in," Officer Reyes said, "could I quickly see your identification, Daniel?" "Of course," he said. He pulled his wallet and handed over his driver's license. The address matched the property. Officer Reyes returned it with a brief smile. A short radio tone came from Officer Miller's shoulder. He listened to a message, then replied, "Copy." He looked at Officer Reyes. "Dispatch noted there's a general entry about the property having a permitted water project." "They don't have the details at their fingertips, but they do see a record. They recommend we continue with a document review." "Good," she said softly. "We're already here." Karen shifted her weight from one foot to the other, then spoke carefully. "Officers, may I provide the HOA pool policy by email? It outlines fence height and gate rules." "Please do," Officer Reyes said. "We'll add it to the notes." Daniel poured another small cup of water for himself. He looked relaxed but attentive, like someone who had practiced being ready. "If you need copies," he said, "I can print them." "We'll look first," Officer Miller said. "Thank you." Daniel opened the binder to the F. Officer Reyes slid the binder a little closer and opened the first tab. The site plan showed the pond's shape like a soft oval, with labels for the dock, the berm, the path, and the small aerator. There were stamps in the corners from the county and the state environmental office. Daniel stood nearby, not hovering, just ready to answer any question. The porch was quiet except for the light sound of the breeze and the faint hum from the aerator across the water. Karen stood a few steps away, arms folded, watching every move with careful eyes. They turned to the permit pages. Each page sat in a clear sleeve, neat and easy to read. Officer Miller read the titles out loud to help his focus. County Water Feature Permit, signed May 2nd. State Environmental Sign-Off, dated May 14th. Program Letter of Agreement. He paused at the last one. The letterhead was clean and official, with a simple name. Regional Safety and Water Training Partnership. Under that, a short line explained the purpose. Occasional use for rescue practice, water entry drills, and safe equipment handling in coordination with a military training unit and local responders. Officer Reyes read the letter slowly, lips moving a little as she followed. The lines. The letter mentioned a schedule of no more than a few days per quarter, with advance notice to the property owner and the community gatehouse. It also listed safety requirements, posted signs, gate control, a pre-activity checklist, and a clear boundary around the dock. At the bottom were two signatures, one from the program coordinator and one from a liaison with a military training unit. The tone of the letter was simple and professional, not loud or secretive. "Do you have the checklist?" Officer Reyes asked. Daniel nodded and flipped to another tab. "Here," he said, showing a printed sheet with small boxes. The steps were basic and clear. Confirm gate staffing, verify signs, inspect the dock rope, test the radio, check first aid kit, set out cones by the path, review emergency contacts, and log start and end times. "I run through this before anyone steps onto the dock," he said. "Most weeks the pond is just quiet, but on training days it's all by the book, officer." Miller glanced up. "Where do you keep emergency gear?" "In the shed by the path," Daniel answered. "It stays locked. I can show you the kit." "Let's finish the paperwork first," Officer Reyes said gently, then looked toward the road. Two more neighbors had paused to watch, one leaning on a mailbox, another holding a reusable grocery bag. The mood felt calm, like a careful class where everyone wanted to learn the right answer. Karen took a small step closer. "Officers, may I point out the HOA rule on pools?" she asked. She held out a printed page that listed fence height, gate, latches, and a required approval form. "This property has none of these. That's what troubled me." "Thank you," Officer Reyes said, accepting the page. She compared it with the binder. "This rule speaks to pools. We'll need to confirm how this water body is classified." "It's a pond," Daniel said, voice steady. "It's not chlorinated. It's not built for leisure swimming. It's a managed water feature. The dock is an access platform, not a ladder into a pool." Officer Miller pulled a small tablet from his pocket and sent a note to dispatch. After a minute, his radio gave a light tone. "County records confirm an open permit for a private pond with limited supervised training use," he said, repeating what he heard. "They suggest we verify the program letter directly." "Let's do that," Officer Reyes said. "Daniel, may we call the contact listed here?" "Please," he replied. "I can also call from my phone if you prefer." "Your line is fine," she said, "but we'll put ours on speaker so we can all hear the basics." Daniel stepped inside, grabbed his phone, and returned to the porch. He dialed the number printed on the letter under Program Coordinator, Ms. Lang. The phone rang 3 times, then a calm voice answered. "This is Ms. Lang." "Good afternoon," Officer Reyes said, leaning closer to the phone. "This is Officer Reyes with County Patrol. We're at a ranch property with a permitted pond. We're reviewing a letter of agreement from your partnership regarding occasional training use." "Hello, officer," Ms. Lang replied. "Yes, we maintain agreements with a small number of private landowners for controlled water training. What is the property owner's name?" "Daniel," he said, giving his full name and the permit number on the binder tab. "Let me look." "It up?" Ms. Lang said. They listened to a few keyboard clicks. "Yes, I see it. Agreement approved in May. The site is registered as a managed pond for water safety practice. We have a light schedule. The next training window isn't until late fall. The owner has been diligent with signage and checklists." Officer Reyes kept her voice even. "There's a neighborhood rule for pools, and someone mistook the pond for one. Can you confirm this is not classified as a pool?" "It is definitively not a pool," Ms. Lang said. "It's a pond with specific safety rules. It falls under environmental and training guidelines, not residential pool code. We also coordinate with a military training unit, but activities are minimal and supervised. If needed, I can email a brief statement summarizing this. That would be helpful, Officer Reyes said. She gave Ms. Lang the department email and thanked her for the call. Your confirmation is clear. Happy to assist, Ms. Lang replied. We appreciate how careful the owner has been. When the call ended, a small silence settled over the porch, the kind that follows a clear answer. Karen's posture shifted. Her shoulders came down a little and her face softened. She looked at the pond again, then at the binder, as if seeing everything with new eyes. The neighbors by the fence looked relieved and curious, not excited, just quietly pleased to understand what was really happening. Officer Miller took photos of the binder pages for the report, corners included so the dates and stamps were easy to read later. He also took one picture of the sign by the dock and one of the path from the gate, careful to show the natural barriers and the no swimming notice. Documentation helps reduce confusion next time, he said, half to himself. Officer. Reyes turned to Karen with a kind expression. Thank you for calling the non-emergency line and not creating a larger scene. Your concern was about safety, and you used the correct channel. We've confirmed this is a permitted pond with special use, not a pool. The rules you brought are for pools and don't apply here. Karen nodded slowly. I understand, she said. Her voice was quiet, not defensive. From the road, I saw water in a dock and assumed the worst. I thought children might wander in. I didn't know about the program. It's good to talk it through, Officer Reyes replied. We're going to note that the property is in compliance. Daniel, I'd recommend adding one more sign near the road that says, permitted pond, not a pool in simple words. It may help casual passers-by. That's easy to do, Daniel said. I can put a small, neat sign on the inside of the fence near the gate. Karen glanced at the binder again. Would you be open to explaining this at the next HOA meeting? She asked, looking not at the officers now, but at Daniel. A short update, 10 minutes, just so people understand what it is and what it isn't. Of course, he said. I'll bring copies of the basics. No heavy details, just clear information. And I'll share the schedule notice process so no one is surprised by a training day. That would help, Karen said. She took a breath, then added, and I'm sorry for the confusion. She didn't rush the words. They came out steady and sincere. Daniel gave a small, warm smile. Thank you, he said. I know rules matter. I try to follow them, too. Sometimes the best way to keep peace is to share facts. The neighbor with the reusable bag raised a hand a little. If there's ever a volunteer day for shoreline care, I can help, she said, shy but genuine. I like the ducks, Daniel nodded. That would be wonderful. I plan to plant a few more native grasses this fall. It helps the embankment stay strong. Officer Miller closed his notepad. All right, he said. From our side, we'll file this as a resolved concern with no violation. We'll attach the photos and a short summary. Permitted pond, proper signs, program letter verified. If any future questions come up, the documentation is clear, Officer Reyes added. And if a training day changes the usual traffic flow, just keep the notice at the gate and the email to the HOA. That way, little surprises stay little. I will, Daniel said. Thank you both for your professionalism. The officers stepped down from the porch and took a final slow look at the pond. The water was calm, holding the sky like a quiet mirror. A dragonfly traced a bright line. Over the reeds and the ducks, busy with their own day, tipped their heads into the shallows. There was nothing loud here, nothing flashy. Just a steady piece of land with a clear purpose. Karen closed her clipboard and held it against her side. She seemed smaller now, not in a weak way, but in a more thoughtful way, like someone who had put down a heavy bag. She looked at Daniel. I'll make sure the board knows the difference between a pool and a permitted pond, she said. Maybe we can add a note in our handbook with the correct terms. That sounds wise, Daniel said. Clear language prevents confusion. As the officers walked back to their cars, the neighbors drifted away, each with a tiny bit of new knowledge to carry home. The cyclist, who had left earlier, returned for a moment, rolled to a stop and said, "Looks good, Daniel." Then he turned and pedaled toward the gate with an easy rhythm. At the patrol cars, Officer Reyes paused with the door open. "If you ever need a quick review of new SIG..." 2 days later, Daniel finished the small sign for the gate. It was simple and neat. Permitted pond, not a pool. Restricted use on training days. He placed it inside the fence so it was easy to see from the road but still tidy. He took a photo and emailed it to the HOA inbox with a short note. "Sign added as suggested. I'm happy to explain the project at the next meeting." A reply came from the HOA president within an hour. "Thank you, Daniel. Please join us on Thursday at 6 p.m. for a brief presentation." Daniel smiled, printed 21-page handouts with the basics, and set a small stack of extra permit copies in his binder. He wrote a few talking points on a sticky note. What it is, how it works, safety steps, schedule, who to contact. The clubhouse sat near the entry gate with a low roof and clean windows. On Thursday evening, chairs were arranged in neat rows. A pitcher of water and paper cups sat on a long table. Karen arrived early, placing an agenda sheet on each chair. She looked focused but less tense than before. Daniel came 10 minutes early, too, binder in hand. He nodded to Karen. "Good evening," he said in a kind tone. "Thanks for setting this up," she nodded back. "Thank you for coming," she answered. The HOA president, Mr. Patel, stood at the front with 2 board members, Lena and Rick. Their posture was calm. They looked ready to listen and guide. Mr. Patel opened the meeting with a warm voice. "Thank you, everyone, for being here," he said. "We have a few items tonight. The main one is the water feature on Daniel's property. This community values safety and good information. We also value kindness and patience. Let's keep our comments short and respectful. We're here to learn the facts." He gestured to Daniel. "You have the floor for 10 minutes. A gentle murmur moved through the room as people shifted in their seats. Daniel stepped forward, set the binder on the table, and placed the handouts beside it. "Thank you," Daniel began, speaking slowly in clear, simple words. "I built a managed pond with county and state permits. Most days it is quiet. A few times a year, it is used for controlled safety training with a regional program. There is no public swimming. There is no chlorination system. This is not a pool." He held up the handout. "This paper lists the permits, the safety steps, and how I notify the HOA before any training day. There are signs on site and a gate process when training happens. Today, I also added a small sign at the front that says, 'Permitted pond, not a pool.' If you have questions, I will answer clearly." Hands went up. A man near the aisle asked, "Will there be loud sirens or late-night activity?" Daniel shook his head. "No sirens. No late nights. Training days are short and scheduled in daylight. The team is small, and they follow a checklist. There is no crowd." A woman in the second row asked, "Will there be extra cars blocking the road?" Daniel replied, "No, we plan parking inside the gate. I also place cones by the path to guide vehicles and keep the lane clear. The schedule goes to the HOA inbox 2 weeks ahead." Another person asked, "Will children be tempted to go near the water?" Daniel nodded and spoke with care. "I take that seriously. There are no swimming signs at the pond. The shore is designed to deter casual entry. On training days, the gate is staffed and the dock area is roped off. On all other days, the gate stays closed." A soft voice from the back asked about night safety. "What happens when it's dark?" Daniel answered, "The gate is closed. There is a motion light near the dock. I also have a trail camera pointed at the gate and path for security, not to spy on anyone." I check the footage only if something looks wrong. I can add reflective markers along the inside fence line so people see it better at dusk. Mr. Patel nodded. That sounds reasonable. Thank you for being proactive. A board member, Lena, looked at the handout. There is a line here about water quality, she said. Can you explain how you manage mosquitoes? Daniel smiled a little. Yes, the pond is aerated, which disturbs the surface and helps prevent mosquito breeding. I also use safe, approved larvicide dunks if needed. They do not harm fish or birds. I test the water twice a month. I log it in a ledger. If anyone wants to see the general trend, I can share a simple summary. A neighbor who loved gardening raised her hand. Do dragonflies help? Daniel's eyes lit up. Very much. I plan to plant more native grasses that attract dragonflies. They eat mosquitoes and make the habitat healthier. A man in a collared shirt asked, what about property values and insurance? Does this cause any risk for us? Mr. Patel answered the first part. The HOA cannot speak to market values, but we can confirm the classification matters. This is a permitted pond, not a swimming pool. Daniel continued. My insurance has a special rider for a managed water feature. I'm not sharing private policy numbers, but I brought a letter from my insurer that says they recognize it as a pond with safety controls. He showed a short letter on company letterhead with personal details blurred and offered a copy to the board for their confidential file. Rick, the other board member, glanced at the letter and nodded once. That is helpful, he said. Karen raised her hand and Mr. Patel invited her to speak. She stood holding the HOA rulebook. I want to explain why I was concerned, she said, voice steady. From the road, I saw water and a dock. I checked our pool rules. I did not know about the program. I called the non-emergency line to prevent a problem, not to create one. After seeing the permits and hearing from the officers, I understand. This is a pond. I'm sorry for the confusion. She paused, then added, I would like us to add a short note to the HOA handbook to explain the difference between a pool and a permitted pond. I also suggest we use a consistent style for signs visible from the road so the community looks neat. Daniel, if you're willing, I'll help match the font and size. Her tone was careful and sincere. Daniel gave a small smile. Thank you, Karen. I appreciate that. I'm happy to use a matching style for the gate sign as long as the wording stays clear. Clarity keeps everyone safe. Mr. Patel looked pleased. Good collaboration, he said. A soft wave of relief moved through the room. People relaxed, in their chairs. It felt as though a knot had been gently untied. A retired teacher asked, could we have a short open house day? Not in the water, of course, just to see the shoreline plants and learn about the safety gear. Daniel thought for a moment. Yes, we can do a very short demo on dry land. I can show the throw bag and the checklist. No one will go on the dock or near the edge. We can keep it to 20 minutes and end with a note about not trespassing. Lena added, we can make it part of our fall beautification day. We'll plant native grasses along the inside of the fence near the road. That will also soften the view for anyone who worries when they see water. Several neighbors nodded and whispered, nice idea, and I'll help. Mr. Patel looked at his notes and spoke clearly. Here's what I propose. 1. The board records that this is a permitted pond, not a pool, and that the owner is in compliance with county and state rules. 2. The board will add a paragraph to our handbook explaining the difference and directing questions to the HOA inbox. 3. Daniel will continue to email the HOA before any training day, 2 weeks in advance. 4. The gate sign may follow. Community-style guidelines for neat appearance, while keeping clear wording. 5. We will plan a short, safe, dry land demo and a volunteer planting day in the fall. He looked up. All in favor? Hands rose across the room. Opposed? No hands. He smiled. Motion carries. A small, warm applause filled the clubhouse. It was not loud, it was kind, like a shared breath after a careful talk. People began to stand and mingle. A neighbor who often jogged near the gate said to Daniel, "I like the new sign. It removed my confusion right away." Another neighbor, an older gentleman with a cap, spoke softly. "I served years ago. Good to know safety skills are still practiced. If you ever need extra hands to carry cones, I can help for an hour." Daniel thanked him. "Your support means a lot." Karen stepped forward with her clipboard against her side. "I'll email you the sign style guide," she said. "We can have it matched by next week." Daniel nodded. "Perfect. I'll order it tomorrow." As the room slowly cleared, Mr. Patel shook Daniel's hand. "Thank you for being calm and prepared," he said. "That made this easy." Daniel replied, "Thank you for giving me the chance to explain. A simple talk solves many problems." Karen lingered a moment more. "I'm sorry again," she said softly, looking him in the eye. "I was trying to be careful, but I should have asked first." Daniel answered gently, "We all care about safety. Next time, just knock. I'll show you the binder first." Karen smiled, a real one, not a forced one. "Deal," she said. That night, the sky over the ranch was clear. Daniel drove home, with the binder on the seat and a feeling of lightness in his chest. He stopped at the gate and looked at the sign he had made that morning. It did its job with quiet words. He went inside, set the binder on the shelf, and wrote a short thank you email to the HOA inbox. "Thank you for the good meeting. I will send the training notice 2 weeks ahead as usual. I will coordinate sign style with Karen and share dates for the fall planting. Grateful for the community." He hit send and felt good about the tone. The next day, he ordered the new gate sign in the community's standard font and size. He also bought 3 trays of native grasses and a small set of stakes. He printed a flyer for the fall planting day. Short demo on Dr. Morning on the ranch felt bright and hopeful. A light breeze moved across the grass, and the reeds by the pond made a soft sound like gentle hands brushing fabric. Daniel walked the path with his usual calm steps. He checked the motion light, touched the rope rail on the dock, and read the new gate sign once more as if it were a quiet promise. Permitted pond, not a pool. Restricted use on training days. He felt thankful that a tense moment had turned into a clear understanding. It took patience, but it worked. The neighborhood was peaceful again. He poured tea and opened his notebook. At the top of today's page, he wrote, "Prep for fall planting, plus dryland demo." The HOA had set the date for a small community session on Saturday morning, and several neighbors had signed up to help plant native grasses along the inside fence near the road. The plan was simple. Keep people far from the water, show the safety gear on dry ground, answer questions in clear words, and plant the grasses together. He had already laid out short stakes, a spool of string to mark the safe line, and a handout with 3 short sections. What it is, how it keeps us safe, how we care for it. By 8 o'clock, the first volunteers arrived. Mr. Patel walked up with a friendly wave. He wore a sun hat and carried a small, bright flag for marking plant spots. Behind him came Lena with a box of gloves and Rick with a bundle of garden trowels. The neighbor who liked dragonflies arrived with a tray of native grasses, smiling like someone who had been waiting for this day. Even the older gentleman with the cap came with soft steps and steady hands. They all greeted one another, and the air felt light, like a simple holiday. "Thank you all for coming," Daniel said, his voice warm and even. "We'll keep our work area here near the fence. The pond is behind the rope line, which we will not cross. We'll start with the dry land demo for 10 minutes, and then we'll plant. Please take a handout if you want one." He pointed to a table where a pitcher of water and cups sat next to a neat stack of papers. He set a small, bright throw bag on the grass. "This is a throw bag used for water rescues," he explained. "It is not for playing. On training days, it is used by trained people only. It stays locked in the shed when not in use." He showed the checklist with the squares and short notes. "This is the safety checklist. It makes sure we do the same careful steps every time. It tells us where to stand, how to set cones, and when to test the radio." The group nodded, listening like students in a calm class. No one rushed to touch anything. The older gentleman looked at the checklist and smiled a little, as if the careful order felt familiar to him. Karen arrived a few minutes late, carrying a small box. She looked relaxed and focused. "I brought the gate sign in the community style," she said. "It has the same words as yours. We can swap it after the demo." She set the box down and joined the circle. Her voice was soft when she added, "Thank you for inviting us." Daniel nodded back. "Happy you're here," he said. "This is everyone's home. We keep it safe together." "Any questions before we plant?" Daniel asked, raising his hand in a gentle way that invited quiet curiosity. A neighbor asked, "How do we help without getting in the way on training days?" Daniel smiled. "Just keep doing what you're doing now. Stay outside the rope line, do not crowd the gate, and share kind words if you speak to visitors. The schedule will always be sent to the HOA inbox in advance. If you see a cone, a sign, or a closed rope, that is your sign to give space." With that, they began to plant. Daniel showed how to place each grass plug a foot apart, tucking it into the soil like a small gift. Mr. Patel marked a gentle curve with flags. Lena brushed soil around the roots with care, while Rick watered each spot with a neat splash. A shared rhythm settled in. People smiled over the simple work. They swapped small stories while their hands moved with purpose. The neighbor who loved. Dragonflies paused and pointed. "Look," she whispered. A dragonfly hovered near a new grass plug, as if it had come to watch the planting ceremony. Several people laughed softly and then kept working. Halfway through, Daniel took a moment to switch the gate sign. Karen helped him line it up, and together they tightened the screws. The sign rested straight, with the same clear wording and a style that matched the neighborhood. Karen stepped back and nodded. "That looks right," she said. "Neat and clear." The two exchanged a small smile that felt like a handshake made of light. When the planting ended, Daniel handed out cold cups of water. He thanked everyone for their time and care. "These grasses will root in and make the edge stronger," he said. "They also invite dragonflies and other helpers." Mr. Patel lifted his cup. "To clarity and care," he said cheerfully. The group repeated, "To clarity and care," and raised their cups like a quiet toast. The week after the planting, the ranch settled into an easy routine. The new sign by the gate did its quiet job. People looked, read, and moved on. There were no more questions that sounded like arguments. Instead, there were just small waves, small smiles, and the normal sounds of a neighborhood going about its day. Daniel updated his ledger with a simple line. "Planted grasses with neighbors. Sign installed. Good teamwork." A few days later, Daniel received an email from Ms. Lang, the program coordinator. The subject line was short. "Quarterly check-in." The message said, "We will not run a training day until late fall, but we'd like to stop by next week for a routine site review. No water activity. Just a walkthrough with clipboards. Is Tuesday at 10 a.m. okay?" Daniel replied, "Tuesday works. I'll place a notice at the gate." He printed a small note for the board. "Routine site review next Tuesday, 10 a.m. No activity. Expect 2 visitors for 20 minutes. He posted it on the community board near the clubhouse and sent a copy to the HOA inbox. On Tuesday morning, 2 visitors arrived right on time. They wore plain shirts and carried clipboards. Ms. Lang had a calm face with clear eyes that noticed details without making a show of it. Her colleague, a quiet man named Jonas, greeted Daniel with a kind nod. "We'll be quick," Ms. Lang said. "We'll walk the path, glance at the dock, and review your checklist. That's all." They moved along the path with careful steps, like people reading a simple, important book. Ms. Lang checked the rope rail. Jonas read the words on the sign and smiled at the new gate sign. "Clear and friendly," he said. "That helps visitors and neighbors alike." Daniel opened the shed and showed the emergency kit, still neat and complete. Ms. Lang ticked, boxes on her list. "Everything is in order," she said. "Your logs are consistent. Your signs are clean and readable. Thank you for keeping a routine." The visit took 15 minutes. When they were done, Ms. Lang handed Daniel a brief note on letterhead. "Site review complete, no issues, next review in 6 months." Daniel placed the note in his binder and felt the lightness that comes from steady work being seen and understood. As they were leaving, a patrol car turned onto the drive and stopped at a polite distance. It was Officer Reyes with a quick check-in on her route. She stepped out with a friendly wave. "Morning," she said. "I saw the notice on the board and thought I'd swing by to see how the new sign looks." Daniel showed her the gate. Ms. Lang introduced herself and shook the officer's hand. "You were very clear on the phone," she said. "Thank you for helping us keep community trust strong." Officer Reyes nodded, pleased. "It's easier when everyone talks early and writes things down," she said. She looked at the pond with a quiet smile. "I like how the grasses already make the fence line softer." When the visitors left, the ranch returned to its calm rhythm. Daniel stood by the water and listened to the reeds. He thought about how the story began, with a misunderstanding and a phone call, and how it had grown into a better story about patience, paperwork, and people learning together. He thought about Karen and the board, about the neighbors with trowels and flags, and about the officers who chose steady conversation over sharp words. He felt grateful. That evening, he wrote a short note for his ledger. "Routine review today. Everything good. Officer Reyes stopped by. New sign working as planned. Neighbors say the grasses look nice." He closed the book and sat by the window. A pair of ducks glided across the pond, leaving a trail like a thin pencil line on glass. The motion light clicked on and off as the breeze moved a branch. The world felt all right. On the weekend, Daniel took a walk by the clubhouse. A mother and her young son stood near the board, reading the posted notes. The boy pointed at a small photo from the planting day. "What's that?" he asked. The mother said, "It's a pond, not a pool. People planted grasses to help nature." The boy nodded as if he understood something big in a simple way. They moved along, and Daniel smiled to himself, unseen but glad. A month passed, and the grasses took root. Their green blades stood a little taller, and dragonflies came more often, tracing the air like tiny kites. The sign at the gate became part of the view, like a friendly mailbox that quietly told the truth. The HOA handbook paragraph helped new families as they moved in. When someone asked a quick question at the clubhouse, other neighbors now answered with calm voices and clear facts. The story had taught them how to speak about the pond, and that calm confidence spread like soft light through the community. One afternoon, Karen stopped at the ranch with a small envelope. Daniel met her by the fence. "I wanted to share this," she said, handing it over. Inside was a note card with a simple M